We are here today in New York during Climate Week and the UN General Assembly, coming together with CEOs and executives from all walks of life to hear directly from them on how they can help to create sustainable impact through their businesses. The SaniIkos Group is an innovative and fast-growing group of luxury resorts in unique beachfront locations in the Mediterranean. However, beyond the luxury is a staunch desire to embrace environmental sustainability. In this interview, we will speak to Executive ESG Director Eleni Andreadis. Great to see you.
Hello, lovely to meet you, Alison.
About the unique challenges of bringing greater environmental sustainability to the tourism industry across the Mediterranean. Andreadis is an individual steeped in environmental causes and as a result is driving change at SaniIkos Group. What are your goals as you're here for Climate Week?
Well, I think there's a really interesting discussion in our part of the world around how do we move our economies. Tourism is a really big part of our economy. For example, in Greece, it's about 25% of our GDP. So it can be a really big part of advancing us towards a more sustainable future. So it's really exciting to be able to share those ideas and thoughts around what we're doing around net zero. As a company, we have a very ambitious target to be net zero by 2030, which is 20 years ahead of the EU goal, as well as zero waste to landfills, zero single-use plastic by the end of this year. So it's really exciting to share what we're doing, but to also learn from others as well.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the innovation that your group has done. First of all, why is sustainability so important to the SaniIkos Group?
So I think it's been integral to the vision of the company from its inception as what was then a small family business back in the day, and now it's become sort of it's formally has been a department and a program in our company for the last 15 years. It's really important to us and at the heart of our operations, but it's also based on three different pillars. So one is to do with sustainability in our operations, and I briefly talked about things like net zero, zero waste to landfill, zero plastic, a sustainable value chain, and these kinds of things. But also there's a second pillar, which is about protecting local biodiversity, and then a third to do with how do we help our local economies to grow, our people, of course, and then to protect the most vulnerable. So we have a program of partnerships and support for over 40 organizations, long-term partnerships to protect the local ecosystems, such as the coastal forests and wetlands, dolphin populations, bee colonies, but then also a big program to do with vulnerable groups such as social partnerships, women's equality groups, and we place great importance on this as well in terms of, having a lot of people that we are discussing these issues with and working to move forward. It's become very integral to our strategy and to the heart of how we do things, and there are many reasons as to why this is. I mean, it's apart from the ethical dimension of doing good. There's also the component of guests. Our travelers are now, I mean, there's a lot of research to support that generally travelers are looking for a more sustainable holiday.
Oh, are they?
Just to mention
I'm surprised.
a recent survey by Bookingcom, amongst thousands of travelers, about 3/4 of them are looking to travel more sustainably, and about less than a half of them feel guilty that they don't. So I think it just kind of mirrors the trend of everyone, and especially the younger generations, being very concerned about issues like climate change and biodiversity loss and all these things. So it's about also meeting guest expectations, exceeding guest expectations. And then there's also other stakeholders, such as investors who are looking for robust sustainability programs in companies they invest in, because that's seen as managing risk more effectively.
Right.
But also, local communities and the social license to operate there. So in short, it's also very important for our business's longevity and strength.
Yeah, and you touched on this. In 2020, Sani Resort became the first carbon neutral resort in Greece. How do you hope to inspire others through your achievements as an example?
Yeah, so 2020 was sort of a milestone for us as part of our journey towards net zero that I mentioned. So becoming carbon neutral is just a small part of that. We're focusing on decarbonization, obviously looking at energy efficiency, reducing energy use, we're investing a lot in renewable energy, electrification of our facilities and fleet, etc. So it's part of a big program. We also procure 100% of our electricity from renewable sources. And this is all certified with ISO certifications such as 14064. And I stress that because I think it's very important nowadays that we have very transparent corporate sustainability programs that are very clear on their targets as well as their progress.
So looking to the future, what else is SaniIkos looking to achieve at this point?
A lot. There's a lot to work on as the challenges become more urgent.
Right.
We need to do as much as possible, really. So we're working very hard on our net zero goal. It's a very ambitious goal, and we're really investing in this area. We're, for example, certifying all our buildings. Ikos Olivia, one of our properties in Greece, was the first to get LEED O&M certification for existing buildings in Greece, and only the third in Europe. Our latest property in Spain, in Mallorca, Ikos Porto Pedro, received a BREEAM certification, Green Building certification, and this is something we're sort of rolling out across the portfolio. At the same time, we're also expanding our partnerships. We have a very interesting few projects happening, for example, with our coastal forest. We're measuring its carbon sink potential, as well as studying how we can increase that through planting and various other measures that also protect the biodiversity. So a lot of interesting projects that are ongoing, as well as our work to get more women in higher levels of our organization across the board in our industry, which is very important, and other projects to protect vulnerable groups. So there's a lot that's happening, and I feel very lucky to be part of that.
Well, I'm certainly feeling inspired by what SaniIkos is doing, definitely. And let me talk about you for a minute. Your education, your career experience, it really is steeped in environmental causes. Why have you decided to dedicate your career for this?
Well, I think I feel very privileged that I was able to grow up in nature. I grew up in Sani Resort, which was then a small family business, and I feel very lucky that I got to love nature through being in it. And I think it wasn't until I went to university and I took a sustainable development course 25 years ago that that it all really clicked into place. And then I started thinking about how I could actually build a career around this area that I felt so passionate about. And then at some point when I was working in London, I was an environmental consultant for a documentary called Climate of Change by Participant Media. And it focused on children that were campaigning to ban plastic bags in their villages and towns. And I was just so inspired by the determination of those kids and their ability to affect change that I then decided to really focus on educational work. And actually that's still a big part of what I do. So I founded this organization called Planet Agents, and we've brought programs to over 100,000 kids around environmental hands-on education. And I've also written 11 children's books around this area. So it's interesting to see that I think when I look at my work as the head of sustainability in our organization and sort of the educational work, I think the commonality there is around getting, whether it's guests or other stakeholders or students, just getting them on the same page around how sustainability is about living better. So it's about a better life for all of us, a life where there's more equality, where we're consuming more mindfully, where we're closer to our food, So it's about living better, and that's kind of what I feel is important to focus on and not forget.
Once again, very inspiring. That is you. Thanks so much for your time, Melanie.
Thank you.
The SaniIkos Group has an innovative approach and deep commitment to sustainable tourism. The fast-growing group of luxury resorts has a vision to pave the way for sustainable tourism in the Mediterranean, positioning Greece as a global benchmark for sustainable hospitality. In 2020, Sani Resort became the first carbon-neutral resort in Greece, and all of its resorts are powered by 100% renewable electricity. The group also produces its own renewable energy on-site in its drive to meet net zero targets by 2030. The SaniIkos Group's contribution to global efforts is a shining example of responsible luxury and how to remain in harmony with our stunning natural environments while guaranteeing its guests have a conscious, more future-thinking stay of guilt-free indulgence.